Filing an extension isn't procrastination, it's strategy. And superseded returns, they're your secret undo button. Today, we're showing how these tools save you from expensive mistakes.
Your creative genius deserves the same precision behind the numbers.
Welcome to Let's Get Fiscal, hosted by Anastasia, Maisha, and Danielle.
Part of the women-led team at Coterie Tax.
From smart tax moves to cash flow strategy,
we decode everything it takes to run a thriving creative business
so you can scale with confidence and sleep easy at night.
Press play and let's grow your business.
Okay, so this week we are going to go over extensions and not the hair kind. So I know that there's a lot of people that have a lot of hesitation about extensions, or maybe they use extensions, but maybe not correctly because they're constantly getting letters. Because there's a little bit of nuance in the extension rules. And especially kind of post-COVID, we've also had a lot of natural disasters. So a lot of the filing requirements have been automatically extended by the IRS because of these natural disasters and things. So I want to make sure everybody is really super clear and confident about what an extension is and what it's not and when to use it, but also not to be afraid of it.
Yeah, is it bad? Like, is it just for procrastination or no? Okay.
No. So there's a lot of different reasons why you would want to get an extension.
Okay.
And when we talk about an extension, so really at the basis of it, so a partnership or an S corporation return, they are due March 15th, and your personal return or your C corporation return is going to be due April 15th. The nonprofits, we have, May 15th. So they at least staggered things for us tax professionals, which is nice. So if you are not able or, you would like to, you can request an extension. You do have to fill out a piece of paper in order to do so. And then that gives you an additional 6 months from the original deadline. So that means that the S corporation and the partnerships get moved to September 15th. I just like words trying to come out of my mouth. September 15th. And then the personal and the C corporation returns move to October 15th.
You got it.
I know.
We're working it.
So those move over to October 15th. But when you do that, there is a part of the extension request that says, like, how much money would you like to pay as you're filing this request for extension? And that's where we get our little hint. The extension is only for the piece of paper.
Okay.
So when you request an extension, you are only requesting that more time to file the return itself.
Okay.
So it does not do anything for the payment. Payment is always due in full on those deadlines.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, the IRS doesn't charge anything for on the partnership or the S corporation level normally when you file an income tax return, because we always want to add in that little caveat. And then when you file your personal return April 15th, whether or not you file on that day, your payment is due in full on April 15th.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's where sometimes there's a little bit of confusion, because especially during COVID or during natural disasters, part of the declaration of a natural disaster is you are given additional time to file, but it also includes additional time for all of the payments. So that's where we've kind of gotten this like weird convoluted thing, because, if you've done something the same way for the last 5 years, why would it suddenly be different?
Yeah.
So that's one of the major things that we want to keep in mind. And I know it's really silly because you are asking them for more time because you don't know how much you owe. So how am I supposed
to make this payment
how
on
much
time?
I was supposed to pay? I would have just filed the return itself. But you are required to pay the amount due. And especially if you don't pay the amount in full, they are going to charge you a late penalty,
Okay.
and which can be up to 25%. And they are going to charge you interest, which is normally based on like the national interest rate. So that
Okay.
could be like 7%, 11%. It's really super high. And that's another key thing, is because even pre-COVID, the amount of interest that it would cost was like 2%.
Yeah.
So I would tell people, I mean, yeah, we do have to pay the IRS, but if you need a little bit of extra time to pay it, if you keep that money sitting in a high yield savings account, you're going to earn more than if you just give it to the IRS. But now that's flipped because interest rates are really, really high right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to overpay your taxes because there's not a lot of, I mean, especially unless you're like doing a lot of day trading and whatever.
Yeah.
Which I don't talk about. We have enough on our plate, or so I'm told that I should.
Yes. Yeah.
So right now, especially for that short term, it's better to make sure that you are paying in full. So
Okay.
making sure that you are still sending in that payment. Also keep in mind that when you are sending in the extension, some of the states will automatically just accept the extension from the IRS, but some of the states don't.
Okay, so you might have to do
So
2 papers.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So the state of New York, you do need to file a request for extension with the IRS and also
Okay.
New York. Again, there's different things if you do tend to forget, but just keep in mind that the IRS and the states, we have that separation, of the federal government and the state government. So that also comes into play when we are requesting extensions and things like that. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. And I always say an extension that is used really well doesn't mean that you don't know how much you need to pay.
Okay. Okay.
So even if I say, okay, let's get an extension, this is going to be part of your tax plan, I still want to be able to have your return ready as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So because the more time, I always tell people time is money. So the more time that I have to review your documents, to look over your situation, to see if we're missing anything, that's what's really going to be saving you money, is because you are paying for my time to be able to analyze this document, to make sure that you are taking advantage of every opportunity available, versus if you just like try to slam everything through, then I'm not going to have as much time to be able to do that.
That makes sense.
With extensions, a lot of people are scared of them because, they don't, if they would get a letter because they ask for an extension, they don't pay in full. So now they have a letter saying they have late fees and things like that. So that's another thing. Or, maybe there's like a higher audit possibility or something like that. And, I mean, really, I don't necessarily see that. I see people getting audited because they're not reporting, they're not doing the return correctly, and they're not reporting all of their information. So if you are filing your return on time, but you only have half of the 1099s that you needed, it might have been better to wait until June or July when your wage and income transcript comes out, and then you can double check that you have all of the information that you thought you were going to need, and then you kind of move forward there.
That's fair, especially for some of the creators that get like 10, 15 potential 1099s. It's just like, hey, I want to make sure, or if they weren't keeping track of all the jobs that they had, I think I'm supposed to get this many. Yeah, that makes sense. Go ahead and do an extension.
Like W-2s that are 4 pages long.
You said that with so much snark. 4 pages long. Yeah.
I mean, I love concert tours, but
so many. Yep. Okay.
So there are definitely situations where it is more beneficial to you to get an extension, file your return correctly the first time, instead of rushing to file the return and then trying to go back and amend it later on. And, sometimes too, if you incorrectly report your income by a substantial amount, they'll tack on another penalty for
Okay.
like an understatement of liability penalty on top of the late fees and on top of the interest. You know, so there are definitely situations where it's better to wait and just make sure that you have all of the information available before you file your return. So, and sometimes too, I like to use it as kind of like a backstop. So once e-file opens up, I just want to get extensions for everybody. That way I don't like nobody has to worry about it, you know, because once it gets to March 14th, like systems break.
Yep.
Like we've seen AWS go down and like all of these like major systems just completely shut down. So then what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you mail it in and you have a certain amount of time to, you
But
know,
still,
get,
but it's
right.
still another extra thing on an already busy time.
Exactly.
So I do have a question. So if you get the extensions in, but you are kind of ready in June, like you're like, okay, I got all the stuff. I know everything's good. You don't have to wait until that extension due date, right? You can file it anytime before that as well. If you're like, okay, I feel confident that I have everything now, we can do this. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The only time that it gets a little bit tricky is, you know, everybody prefers e-file. So where you're just electronically transmitting the information to the IRS instead of mailing a piece of paper and then having somebody have to go through it. But e-file does shut down right about Thanksgiving up until, you know, the last week of January.
Okay.
So again, you always want to file your return as soon as possible, because once you, even if you mail it in, that postmark date, that's going to be the date where they're going to stop those that penalty and interest, even if it takes them a little bit longer to process the return. So you do still want to continue to file, even if all of the deadlines have passed, just still file that return, get it in there, because it also starts the time clock for the statute of limitations.
Okay.
So if you never file a return, there's no statute, so they can come.
They can come all the way back. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
So, and again, you know, there are caveats, but, you know, for the most part, in a normal situation, just file your return.
Okay.
Just file it, get it done. So even if you wait until November 15th, file it, get it all through, get it done with. But just know that e-file closes from November until about January. And then we're able to, you know, open back up and do all of that fun stuff.
That makes sense. So you had said it a little bit before, like amended, but then there's also superseded. So like what are the differences there? Because like amending, it's kind of like, it seems like it makes sense of like what it would do, but what is then superseded?
Right. So a superseded return is something that a lot of people don't even know exists.
Okay.
And that's where it gets really, really fun.
Okay.
So a superseded return is when you request an extension. So the IRS doesn't necessarily require that you file it after the original deadline, but some of the states do. Like, so California, if you request an extension and then you file it on, you know, March 14th, then California is like, well, you didn't really need this, so I'm going to throw it away and pretend like you never requested an extension at all. So that's why sometimes I say like, okay, we'll request an extension. We have your return ready. We're going to submit it on the 16th.
Gotcha.
You know, just right the day after. And then that opens up the possibility for this thing called a superseded return. So a superseded return is basically a second chance at filing an original return.
Oh, okay.
So you're not amending anything. They are throwing away whatever you gave them before.
Okay.
And this is your original return. You're basically saying like, oh, never mind, you know, here's my actual return. And you can do that up until the extended deadline.
Oh, okay. Now, what are the, like, I guess the benefits of doing it as superseded versus just an amended? Like, how does that?
I mean, so that's, you know, like the significantly, you know, reported like under liability.
Oh, okay.
You know,
for, like, the
also
fees and
there's
stuff.
certain elections and certain special things that you can only do on an original return.
Gotcha.
Or an
Okay.
original return is very, very special. So they're like, while an amended return is out there to make corrections to, you know, different issues, amended returns do have restrictions.
Okay.
And
Okay.
they're not able to do everything that you can do on an original return. And there's a lot of things that you get one shot at, and you cannot go back and change your mind. And even on the state level, that can happen.
Gotcha.
So a
Okay.
superseded return gives you a little bit more maneuverability if something happens later on down the line.
Gotcha. Like a second first chance.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. So you can go through, you can make these elections if you find out that something has changed, a little bit down the line, and you just receive new information, or maybe tax law changed in some kind of weird way and they change it after the deadline. Well, now, and sometimes you see tax law, it goes back and it changes things, in previous years. But if you had filed an original return, filed it on time, not gotten an extension, even if the tax law said you can go backwards, you can only do that, but you can only do that on an original return, then it wouldn't be available to you. So superseded returns are definitely a really special beast. And like I said, it's your second shot at telling the IRS what you actually owe, versus an amended return where you have to explain the reason why you didn't do it correctly the first time. You open yourself up to, potential, additional charges and things like that. So, and a person has to just sit there and read, like you have to give them an explanation of why you didn't do it correctly and where the change was and all of that fun stuff. And you have to wait until a physical person in the IRS reads it and agrees with your, your reasoning, because just because you file an amended return does not mean that the IRS has to accept it.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
So that's also, one of the things to kind of keep in mind, because I've seen, it's always pretty annoying, but if, something happens and it's not disclosed properly and it's not in a way that the person that's reviewing it can understand really easily, they could just say like, no, I don't like it. And then they just send it back.
Gotcha. Okay. So then let's say you file a little early, but you get a corrected 1099 after the fact. So like, is that when we would want to use like that superseded if possible, or?
Well, again, if you filed on time, it wouldn't be available to you. So you'd have to amend the return.
Gotcha. Okay. But if you file early?
Right. That's what I'm saying. If you file your return early and it's before the original deadline, if you, so if you file your return on January 25th.
Gotcha.
And then you receive a piece of paper on the mail February 3rd, then you have to amend your return.
Oh, you were locked into
You
amending.
are locked in.
Locked
in. But if you filed your return on April 16th, and then in June or July, you get your transcript and you realize that somebody sent you a 1099, that you would have already reported the income, but maybe instead of that, they didn't exclude the reimbursements. Like you have a travel per diem and you produced all of the receipts, but they still just issued it to you just like services. So now you've reported the correct amount because you reported the amount of income that you received for services, but they've included your travel reimbursements, which they shouldn't have. So now there's a mismatch between your income and what you've, what the IRS says and what you've actually reported. So, maybe that's a scenario where you go back, you can file a superseded return and do different things or what have you. Most of the time it's going to be for a little bit more complicated situations. But like I said, a lot of it is just being able to have in your back pocket the possibility of filing a second original return.
Gotcha. Nope, that makes sense.
And, again, you still have to pay, you still have to do all of that fun stuff. And I even tell people sometimes they are right up against the deadline. I say, okay, if you file late, it's going to cost you $250. But if you file now and let's say you have to go to your bank in order to get bank statements because you've closed the bank or you've closed the credit card or something like that. So we're missing a complete, a complete set of expenses, like $50,000 worth of expenses. maybe it makes sense to wait a little bit in order to do that. Because if I file with the information that I have now, I'm not going to have all of your expenses, and we can amend to add expenses that were erroneously not included, but then you still have to wait months. And sometimes, I mean, I've seen where it could take them a year to process an amended return. And in that time, you filed your next year's tax return, and then they take in next year's refund to pay for this bill from the last year that was all wrong. And like you create this like huge circle and big mess of things that can take years to clean up. So that's where sometimes that superseded return will get you.
Like comparing. Yeah.
Okay. And like I said, and don't rely on being able to just like, oh, I'll just file an amended return later on.
Gotcha.
And because I've seen people do that where they're just like, oh, I don't really know what to do. I'm just going to walk into H&R Block, pay them $1,000 to file this return that I know is wrong, even though I'm signing under penalty of perjury that this is complete. But then they have to go back. And like I said, they have to pay a second person to file it again and do it correctly when they could have just gotten an extension and filed it correctly to begin with.
Gotcha. Okay, so like, let's say you're a creator, your books are probably not going to get done by the April deadline. What should you do at that point? Should you just like ask for it when you know in advance? Like, can we just go ahead and get an extension?
I think you need to do, a little bit of soul searching in the beginning of the year.
Like, will I have all the info from my accountant? Yeah.
Right. And just be really clear, because and because it's not a bad thing. You're not, it doesn't mean anything. Tons and tons of people request extensions. People that have a lot of money request extensions because they're waiting on all the K1s from all their partnerships. And most of the time the partnerships are going to push everything out to September. So like lots and lots of people get an extension. It's just about making sure that you're using the extension in the right way and not saying like, okay, well, I got an extension, so now I'm going to go take a break, and then I'll talk to them in August, because now you've just created the exact same situation that you've had, the whole entire time. So I guess the only takeaway would be to just not be afraid of an extension. An extension is inherently not a bad thing. They are a good thing and they're a useful tool, but remembering that they are a tool, so you need to use them properly.
Yeah. Nope, that makes sense. Okay, it's not as scary. And we learned about a whole other like first, second chance.
Yeah.
So
and that's why
first chance. Yeah.
Like I said, some people like they get upset because they're like, my accountant just filed an extension without asking my permission. And it's just because in most cases, it's best practice to file an extension for you. And it's in your best, like they're looking in your best interest based on their experience, based on their knowledge of you and their client base, that it's going to be better to have that extension sitting out there for you just in case.
Yeah, I like it.
So if you have any questions about extensions, how you can better utilize them in your tax strategy to, get your tax situation a little bit more buttoned up, feel free, send us a comment or a message, and we are happy to get back to you.
Bye, guys.
That's a wrap on Let's Get Fiscal.
Ready to stop guessing and start saving? Click the link in the show notes.
Grab your consult and let's make your business work for you,
Not the other way around. You've got this.